Good morning, everyone, and welcome to A Soulful Pause. And I'm Josette Diaz. I'm a self awareness coach for women in midlife. And I am so excited this morning, as every Thursday morning, to share with you someone that's really special. And today we're going to be talking to Carol Pilkington. And Carol is a fantastic woman who I had a great conversation with and invited her to come on because I think she has some really great things to share with all of you. And she cannot wait to talk to you. I've spoken to her already this morning about guiding high functioning entrepreneurs, often self referring to themselves as overachievers, their executives and business owners through the challenging terrain that they manage in existential crises. And so she helps these successful individuals who have achieved traditional markers of success, such as wealth, power, and status, to find deeper meaning and purpose in their lives. And isn't that what we're all looking for, right? So, encouraging them to embrace autonomy fosters authenticity, fulfillment, and life congruent with their true self and core values. And what a fabulous thing to do with individuals that are leading the world in so many different ways. So I'm very excited to dive into this conversation, and I know you are too. So we'll be right back in just a moment. So enjoy this little intro, and I will see you really soon. Ladies, are you the one who gets it all done? Always pushing forward, always striving? In the constant chase for success, when was the last time you took a moment just for you? We're always on the go, rushing from one task to the next, barely pausing to catch our breath. What if we took a moment to pause? Imagine listening in, really listening, to the wind, to your heartbeat, to your soul. What if slowing down was the key, a chance to discover a deeper connection with yourself? And from that connection, expand it to those you love, to the moments that truly matter. Pause, reflect, connect. It's time to live fully from the inside out. Welcome, Carol. How are you? Oh, I can't hear you yet.
Thank you for having me. I'm
Yes.
so glad to be here.
Thank you. And I want to make sure that your last name is pronounced correctly. Can you please pronounce your last name? Because I might have goofed it up.
No problem. It's like 3 words, Pilkington.
Ah, beautiful. Okay, so welcome, Carol Pilkington. I want to make sure I got it right. So I'm so excited. We had such a great conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I can't wait to dive into the things that you do and what you're up to and all of those wonderful little juicy bits that we're going to get into today. So I want to start off by just kind of asking you what led you to where you are right now, and what does it mean to you in the work that you do?
Oh my goodness, it's a really, really big question. So I'll try and keep it short. Well, I've always known that I was going to be of service somehow, some way. And
Mhm.
I think I was one of those people that came into the world already questioning um, what am I here for? What am I doing? I
Mm.
literally felt like an alien dropped from wherever into this land of human beings. And
Yeah.
it was very awkward. I felt so out of place and like I did not belong here. And it was very despairing. I felt despair and anxiety over it. And um, then I had an experience, and this experience just happened out of the blue. And I was standing literally on the curb in front of my home when I was a little girl.
Mhm.
And this message came through that said that I am love. And it was like I was like 9 or 10, if that. And I said, What? What am I supposed to do with that, right? I mean, I'm a kid.
Yeah.
I I didn't even my family was not a religious family, so we didn't belong to any organized religion, and
Mhm.
there was nobody for me to go to explain what I just experienced. But this, I was so flooded with love
Mm.
and informed that that's who we are at the core of our being.
Yeah.
And yet, when I looked around me, all I saw was pain, anger, you know, fighting war. I said, how could this be? So,
Yeah.
not just like everybody else, I had to go through my own trials and tribulations of everyday life.
Mhm.
But those questions still haunted me, and I felt still out of place. And then years later, I found a teacher that would help me reconnect with the experience that I'd had as a child and
Yeah.
help me to deeply understand the nature of what that meant. And I
Mhm.
wanted others to experience that as well, that it's not about what's going on outside of us that defines us. It's who we are at the core of our being as spiritual beings. I know a lot of people
Yeah.
out there, oh God, now we're going into the woo-woo stuff. No. See, we live in a culture and society where we don't pay attention enough to the inner
Mm.
world,
Mhm.
and we don't connect with the heavens,
Right.
and we are so urbanized and cityfied and programmed that we have to get a job, make a career, have a family, all
Mm.
these materialistic um, attachments that
Yeah.
go on to define us, and we don't. We are so lost and so out of touch with who we really are, and so
Mhm.
that's what my mission, if you will, is to help individuals that are searching as well, but don't even realize what the nature of that search is. They just go around feeling depressed, anxious, and
Mhm.
feel loss of some kind that they can't even describe.
Yeah.
But yet
Yeah.
achieve so much in life materially. And so I want to help them get back to or find out who they really are at the core of
Mhm.
their being so that they can be congruent inside and out.
Yes, I love that. Oh, you know what I really enjoy is when you were speaking about your childhood and when you had this inkling that there's so much more, right? And then love shows up and you're flooded with the sensation of what that means because as a, what, 8, 9-year-old, I mean, we love our parents, we love our siblings, we love, our aunts and uncles, etcetera. So that's kind of usually the experience of love that children have. And so there's not necessarily this expansive understanding or level of depth of what love really means in a, oh, I don't know, bigger sense, right?
Mm,
And
yeah.
and to, like, have the experience of being flooded with that, and then get the inklings as you grew up, never forgetting it, and always it staying with you. To me, that's what I like to call the golden thread. There's a seed that's always planted, from our childhood, and if we can recognize that and follow it like you have, it's led you from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, which we automatically do. We just don't always do it with intention and awareness. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I floundered just like everybody else. I had bad relationships, but my the way I went about all of that is I never blamed the other person
Mhm.
for what occurred in the
Yeah,
relationship, because I was always examining where
right.
what can I learn from this?
Mhm.
And what I was arriving at many times is, why am I putting myself in relationships with people that are not available emotionally or any way?
Right.
And I had to really take a long, hard look at that. And somewhere the wires got crossed of how a relationship should look. We are
Mm.
so programmed to define relationship in such a way that is so discombobulated. It's like
Yeah.
it's really transactional love, you know? When we go
Yeah.
into a relationship,
Yeah.
it's like, what am I gonna get out of this? Right? I
Right.
will give you this if you give me that.
Mhm.
That's what relationships usually wind up being about.
Right.
And
Do you
so, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna interject a question because it brought something to mind. When you we talk about, like, relationships and how they can be so transactional in that way, just from our own human experience and our day-to-day unawareness or idolization of what romantic love is supposed to look like, would you say that that is kind of a love that is just using the 5 senses and not really bringing in the sixth sense of what love is and the intention of love and our own ability to, be in that? Does that
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We see all these we see the programs on TV, and we go from there on what love is supposed to look like, what
Yeah,
relationship is supposed to look like. And we have our parents and um, church and all these other areas of life, books that
yeah,
tell us what love and relationship is supposed to be like.
yeah,
But that's, like you said, that's just satisfying the five senses. It's not getting in
right,
touch with with our true nature. Love is about
yeah,
freedom and being with another and supporting one another
mhm,
and helping one another to be the best that we all can be, right?
yes,
And the freedom to
mhm,
be who we are, and
yeah,
elevating that.
right, and in just going off of 5 senses of love, that if that's how we define it for ourselves, right, in our experience, do you feel that that is one of the ways that possibly, I'm not saying for everyone, because we can't put everyone into one particular box, yet you work with many high achievers, and these are people that are really doing big things in life. And if we are looking at just the concepts of love, because we know and we've heard, I don't know if we know, we've heard a lot about how love is the key, right? And it's the thing that we, if we focus on, can really propel our lives in a way that creates more happiness. I'll just say it that way. So, with high achievers, my question, I'm getting to it, sorry, is, do you think that looking at love in 5 senses leads us down these different paths where our patterns and habits and all of that gets so ingrained in us that that is part of the challenge? Do you think love comes into play when you're working with your high achieving, clientele?
Yeah, I think it's at the core of it actually, and they don't even realize it.
Mm,
There's really a disconnect of who they are and what they have been. conditioned and programmed to believe what it is, whatever the
Mm,
it is for every individual. You know, they're we're programmed to um, attain success. We're programmed to attain
yeah.
material wealth,
Mhm.
status, accolades. But when all is said and done, and all those things are stripped away, what do you have? If you
Yeah.
don't have that inner sense of knowing who you are without the
Mhm.
external accoutrements,
Mhm.
you're in trouble. But that's the
Right.
existential crisis and the path that people need to come to in order to discover who they really are and live from
Mhm.
that authentic, singular place, if you will.
Yeah.
And it takes courage.
Mm,
It really takes courage because everybody outside of us that has supported us in getting us to where we are with all that success and fame and um,
right.
all the accoutrements that go along with it, they're
Mhm.
in the same. They could be in the same boat, and so they're just
Yeah.
enabling all of that. And so when we begin to question, that puts us at the crossroads as a conflict with the people around us because they're looking at us as if we're crazy. What's wrong with you?
Mm.
You've got everything.
Mhm.
No, nothing. I feel like I have nothing. And so that's the
Yeah.
journey that people go on and have the courage to go on despite what everybody else is saying around them.
Which that's a really scary thing to dive into. I mean, it's so important to acknowledge how courageous it is because it's so unknown. It's shifting paradigms, right? It's,
Mhm.
changing the way that most people go about their business every day, and that takes a lot of courage to do. Do you find that there's, any common themes other than just these few things that we just touched on, in a deeper sense, when you see them on their journeys, are there other common themes that are worth mentioning in order to kind of like give the audience more of an understanding of how much connection there really is?
Yeah, a lot of times they're feeling very isolated. Like they
Mhm.
really can't talk about what they're going through, that nobody will
Mm.
understand them, that they're the only ones. And that creates even more disconnect and even more pain. It's like a
Yeah.
vicious cycle. And
Mhm.
there's shame involved, guilt because they have responsibilities to fulfill for their families and anyone else that's relying or counting on them. And so
Mhm.
that's it's a big responsibility. And
Yeah.
oftentimes they feel like it's an either or situation. Like they have to
Mm.
completely give up everything in order to find what they're looking for and discover what they're
Yeah.
looking for when really it doesn't have to be that way. You can have both. You can begin to that journey and still do the things that are required of you. We have to accept the life that we're in already, right? And
Mhm.
all the while go on that journey of discovery and questioning and inquiry to
Yeah.
discover our true nature so that we can either
Mhm.
switch gears and go in another
Mhm.
direction that's more fulfilling or continue on the road that we have been but with a different perspective and value um, attached to it because it's about
Yes.
our values. It's about
Right.
reorganizing and seeing what is really valuable to ourselves.
Mhm. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I That's something that I work with the women that come to me on a great deal. It's the first thing that we actually pay attention to is what do you value? Because I think so often, like everybody's had this experience. We graduate high school, whatever we do after that is the next thing that leads us to the next thing that leads us to the next thing. And we just kind of like flow along with that, right? We don't even really think about it most of the time, not all of us. And
Mhm.
then we start to recognize that as we get older, I think midlife it's all designed this way. We're supposed to go along and not know until we get older. And then we start to recognize these things and we can see where we put our values under the rug. And that's how we're not honoring and loving ourselves and how we diminish our worthiness. And so I really agree with you 100% about the values. And there was something else I was gonna mention about that. Oh, and so it then becomes a process of leading your life with your values rather than life leading you and you trying to fit your values in.
That's right. And the other thing too is, I have found that often people don't even know what their own values are. They've gone
Yeah.
along with what others have defined values for them. And so
Mhm.
it's like turning everything upside down and on its head in order
Right.
to get to that place. And that's, I think, what makes everything so scary, because they're in this, they're so in uncharted territory, if you will,
Yeah.
that they're literally breaking everything apart from the inside out.
Mm,
And
that's such a big
it's the
job.
scariest, yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
It's the scariest thing on earth. But
Yeah.
to be but to be in the unknown is the best
Mhm.
place to be, because that is the most fruitful place where
Yeah.
discoveries can be learned. And we are the creators of our own reality. And we sometimes don't realize that.
Mhm.
And when we allow ourselves to sit in the unknown, I call it groundlessness.
Yeah.
Sit in the question of, I don't know. It's okay not to know, that which is another thing. We're programmed and conditioned to believe that we have to know everything all the time about everything.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's just not true. The unknown is the best place to live, because then you can create whatever you want.
Right. It's that process of getting to where you get used to being uncomfortable. So uncomfortable becomes a little more comfortable,
Yeah.
which
It's a
not
paradox, isn't it?
normalizing it, but yes, exactly. I find that, like, that's really truly the center of when you are shifting yourself in the work that you do, you're really, bringing people into out of their existential crisis into a new identity of themselves. And when you are walking that line, it is one foot in the old and one foot in the new. And to manage to keep yourself at a higher state of being as you're doing it is one of the most challenging, hardest things you can do. Would
Yes.
you agree? Do you find how do you help your clients through that process? Because that's like the meaty, really teetering point.
It is. And what I share with them is that, I found that in my own life, whatever I am looking
Mhm.
for,
Yeah,
it is looking for me.
that's right. Yeah, I love that.
And when we can
Yeah.
allow ourselves to sit in that, that
Mhm.
whatever we need will find us.
Yeah.
And so when we can allow ourselves to be led,
Mhm.
it's such a joy. So, oh, it's like a child waking up on Christmas morning with all these boxes and things under the tree. What am I going to
Yeah.
discover today? Or they open open the door to a new, landscape. What am I going to find today? They go out into the world so innocent and joyful about what am I going to find today? What adventure am I going to go on today? That's what
Yeah.
we can actually bring that back into our lives, is that
Yes.
joy of discovery, that joy of adventure, and just allow ourselves to go through that process and not take ourselves so seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. That I think that's so true because we do take ourselves so seriously, and that's how we stay in the belief system, the patterns, the habits that we've, done over and over and over, and that keeps us connected into the past. So when we're wanting to shift, we have to do different things, and so I love that joy is a centerpiece for that part of that transformation. I love that. Um, I'd like to know, like, um, let's see, what am I trying to ask you? Okay, I'd like to know, like, are there other, like, practical steps or tools, um, that listeners might use to foster some other qualities to bring into their own lives? You mentioned joy. Is there any other tools that you would want to extend to the audience that they could use to, in practical sense, be able to manage this a little in their daily life?
Yes, I would say don't be it's really important to not be afraid of just saying I don't know, because that is a point in which you can begin to
Mm,
discover things. But
yeah.
when you don't admit that you don't know,
Mhm.
then you get trenched in the belief that I need to know everything, and the anxiety and the depression and the all the, what ifs come up. What if people find
Yeah.
out that I don't know? It's like,
Yeah.
who the hell cares?
Right.
Because really, it's none of our business what other people think about us.
That's right.
That's another
Yes.
thing that I had to learn. That it's
Mhm.
none of my business what other people think about me or say about me, because they're going to do it anyway,
Right.
and I have no
And
control over it.
yeah. And especially if you have that kind of mindset, you are able to, like, go about your business. It's not gonna sidetrack you and throw you backwards and trip you up and, all those other things that we go through when we are concerned about things that aren't our business.
Mhm.
It's kind of like when
Exactly.
an just sidebar here of, like, when empaths have such a, they feel so much, they take in so much, they make so much their own business, and they find themselves miserable. And
Mhm.
it's because they are taking too much ownership of things that don't belong to them. And then what can happen is you're then stopping someone else's greatness from being experienced. So it can be the
Absolutely.
same kind of thing, right? Would you agree
Yes.
with that?
Yes, most definitely. And um, which brings me to another point, is that everybody is on their own path, whether they realize it or
Mhm.
not, whether they're conscious of it or not.
Yeah.
Everyone is going down their own path. And sometimes we have to allow others to do their path so that we can do our own.
Mhm.
We can't
Yeah.
interfere in another person's process,
Yes. It's
because when
it's
we do,
hard.
yeah, because when we do, we they could get angry. Like
Mhm.
when they're taken off their path, when we intervene in someone else's process, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, all hell can break loose.
Yeah.
There can be resentment, um, but we need to stay in our own lane and do our own
Yeah.
process. And like I said, um, it's really important, number one, to be okay with not knowing everything.
Yes.
And the second thing is to allow for some stillness in your life. because when you
Mm,
don't, when you're constant, I hear people saying, I can't sit still. I have to be doing something all the time. Well, that's, to me, a form of escapism, because they're
mm,
afraid to
good
sit
point.
in the stillness, because they're afraid of what's going to come up, what's going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah, right? It's an
Again,
avoidance
fear of the
tactic.
unknown. Yes,
Yeah,
avoidance.
yeah. You said something else a moment ago. I'm trying to recapture it because you said so many great things, but you were talking about I'd like to know, is there anything that came up for you if throughout your journey that stands out that really transformed your own understanding of what fulfillment is?
Mm,
I mean, that's
that's a really
probably a
great
personal
question.
it's right? It's personal to
Yeah.
each person, I would gather, but
Oh, absolutely. And I think for me, I was in the corporate world for 30 years, and
Mhm.
I had a conflict. Nothing that I was doing was really feeding my soul.
Yeah.
And so I left corporate life, and I went deeper onto my own journey. But what I discovered along the way is that I
Mhm.
threw the baby out with the bathwater. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to leave my corporate job in order to do what I'm saying that other people don't have to do. You don't have to dispose of everything in order to be on your journey. I needed
Yeah.
those skills. I needed everything. I needed every bit of experience that I had to get me
Mm.
to the place of needing to do something
Yeah.
about my own, finding my own and finding myself and my own discovery. So I want people to know that, we hear about the I shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I should have
Right?
done this, that should have done that. No, you did whatever you needed to do in the moment. You couldn't
Mhm.
have done anything different because you didn't know to do anything different.
Yeah.
And so the skills that I picked up along the way, I needed at a practical level to
Mhm.
be able to be who I am today. I needed every single bit of the experiences that I had to help me be who I am today. That's another paradox of life.
Right.
When we think that I wish I'd done this sooner, or I wish I'd done that or said that sooner. But no,
Mhm.
everything happened according to how it needed to happen.
Yes.
And when we
It's so
accept that, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, it's so freeing, and it helps us on our path of self-discovery. Okay, so I've got all these skills, and I know I'll be able to use them somewhere along the line,
Mhm.
but now I
Yeah.
need to learn other things at a deeper
Right.
level that represent the new values system that I'm discovering for myself.
Yes. Ah, so good. It's like the unfolding, right? You're speaking of the unfolding. And I think that that's so key that like you said, you threw the baby out with the bathwater, right? But you didn't know at the time that it could be different. And
Mhm.
so you did what you knew. And as we there's a it served a purpose as well. 'Cause no matter what it is that's showing up in our life, we've created it from the way that we think, our attitude, the way that we believe, how we lead our life. That's what is showing up. And if you don't like something, then dive in a bit because
Yeah.
you're going to start to discover what you're really doing internally, and it's all about the internal. You mentioned things like I'm just gonna recap our conversation because it's so good. You talked about a lot about, like, observation, and I think observation is key for any transformative work, and you spoke of, values, which number one, it's a big deal to really understand what you value so that you lead your life with intention. And then
Mhm.
boundaries are not something hard to set because you live by your values. And, all of those things just really help move people from one space that they've been in to a new space. And if you can remind yourself that every day you're creating your future, it's going to really help you focus on, do I want to do I want to make this decision? Do I want to avoid that? Do I want to sit back on this? Because that's what I'm asking for more of. And
Mhm.
it's like a daily practice, and the more that we have these awarenesses and, do the internal work, sorry, I got on my soapbox a little bit there, but, I think that
No,
it's
true.
important, and it recaps all the work that you do to bring people to an authentic place with about who they truly are. Such beautiful work. It's so
Thank
important.
thank
Yes.
you. Yeah. It's I think it's the kind of work that we're not trained to do
Mhm.
and that we can't do by ourselves,
Right.
because there have been a lot of blind spots that I wouldn't have been able to see without guidance from someone.
Yes. Right. Right. It's not just like listening to things, reading material, all of that is helpful guidance and it can point you in the right direction. Yet having someone that helps hold you accountable, that keeps you focused and reminds you, that continually reminds you, because it's so easy to slip back into patterns that we're used to. It's like everyone's had this experience who drives. You're driving down the road and your mind is sort of wandering, and all of a sudden you find yourself going into a different direction that you were used to going, but now you go a different way, but you went on automatic pilot, right? So the body keeps the score. So there you
Yeah.
were, and you have to turn around. So it's kind of the same thing. That's what happens to all of us.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. We um we are so conditioned to stay on the straight and narrow with everybody
Mhm.
else and join common consensus.
Yeah.
Like I said before, it's really difficult to break away from the tribe, break away
Mm,
from the herd mentality,
right.
um, to go
Takes a
on
lot of
our
bravery.
own. It does. It really
Yeah.
does.
Well, Carol, to wrap up our conversation, I'd really love for you to share anything that you would like to share with the audience on something you might have coming up or how they can reach you. I'm going to be putting your links in, but please go ahead and let people know what you want them to know today.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm doing a lot of interviews, so just kind of follow me on LinkedIn. You can
Beautiful.
find me on LinkedIn. And I also have a 4-minute assessment quiz that people can take to find out where they're at on their own journey. And it's called soulfilledlivingquiz.com. And they'll get instant results in their inbox. Check your junk mail if you don't get it there. And they'll have an opportunity to also have a conversation with me to, see where they're at and
Mm,
where they want to go next on their
yeah.
journey.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. This was such a very exciting and interesting conversation. We really got to dive deep on some important topics, and transformation is such a big deal. We go through it all the time. It just means change. And so we're all constantly changing, right, throughout our lives. So it's nice to know that there are wonderful people like yourself that can help
Thank
others
you.
make those transitions. So thank you so much for being with me today. And
Thank you.
everyone, thank you. And we'll be back next Thursday with another guest, and I'm keeping it a surprise, so look out for it during the week. And have a wonderful weekend,